Grace and peace, family, and welcome to day 13 of our Lent journey. Lent is not just about what we give up, but it's about what God is trying to grow in us. And today is a heart check because Jesus is going after what influences us. We're in Mark chapter 8 today, verses 14 through 21. The disciples in this text get in a boat and they realize they forgot bread. They've got one loaf and now anxiety starts creeping in. And while they're stressing about what they lack, Jesus speaks a warning about what is bigger than their mere lunch. Here's what Jesus says. Mark chapter 8, verse 15. Be careful, Jesus warned them. Watch out for the yeast of the Pharisees and that of Herod. Now, let's talk about yeast for a moment. Yeast is small, but it spreads. Really, that's the point. Jesus is saying, be careful about what quietly multiplies inside of you. Because the most dangerous spiritual issues are not always loud, they're subtle or they're quiet. The Pharisees in our text had religious influence, but they didn't have surrendered hearts. Herod in this text represents political pressure and public opinion, image and compromise. Now, they have different lanes, but really they both have the same problem, that both the Pharisees and Herod the king both can shape you from the inside out if you don't watch it. And then Jesus asked them a question, and honestly, it feels like a real spiritual checkup. It's found in verse 18 where he says, do you have eyes but fail to see and ears but fail to hear? In other words, you've seen me provide. You've watched me multiply loaves. You've experienced my power. So why are you panicking now over bread? You've allowed the influences of the world, the Pharisees and the Herods of your day, to influence how your faith shows up in this moment. And now you're tripping over some bread. That's a word for us that sometimes what you call a practical concern is really a faith issue. Sometimes your stress about resources is exposing what's really happening inside of your heart. And hear me today, Jesus isn't shaming you. He's rather trying to shape you with his text. He's saying, don't let the lack in your hands blind you to the God who has already been faithful to you. So let me give you 3 truths to help carry this out. Number 1, we must learn that small influences shape big outcomes. Yeast works quietly, but changes everything. So we have to pay attention to what's been feeding our mindsets lately. What have you been listening to? What do you keep replaying? Or hear me, what do you keep believing? Number 2, we must learn not to get so focused on what you lack that you forget what God has done. Jesus reminds them of the leftovers from the miracles. Now, friends, that's intentional in this text. I want you to go back and read it all. It's intentional because it's remembering that, friends of God, that recalling what the Lord has done in our lives is spiritual discipline. That if we're able to remember what God has done, that gratitude for what he has done before helps to strengthen our faith. And lastly, we learn from this text how to guard your heart from pressure and pushes that lead you towards compromise. If you're to read this entire text, you know that the yeast of Herod is that voice that says, do what you have, keep you where you are. It's that voice that continues to say, hey, you're not good enough to be here. It's that voice that says, do whatever you have to do in order to get wherever you need to get. Or we see the yeast not just in here, we see the yeast in the Pharisees. And the Pharisees' yeast is this: look holy even if you're not whole. Say you're too blessed not to be stressed and go home and stress out. Jesus is calling us to integrity on the inside, to be mindful of the yeast that is growing. So what do you do today? Well, I want you to practice a simple practice, and I'll be done. Maybe you want to consider doing a quick inventory and name one yeast that's been spreading, whether that's fear or pride, whether that's compromise, whether that's comparison, whether that's bitterness, maybe that's people pleasing, maybe that's control, maybe that's cynicism, whatever it is. I need you to name your yeast and then pray, Jesus, remove what's contaminating my faith and renew my mind. And choose one faith move that resists that yeast that you just named. If it's fear, take one step of obedience today. If your yeast is bitterness, take one step to release one person in your life. If it's comparison, take one step today to celebrate somebody else other than yourself today. If it's people pleasing, if that's your yeast, then learn how to tell the truth today. If it's trying to control everything and control outcomes, then today, in order to overcome that yeast, learn how to surrender just one thing. And watch what God will do when, friends, we are mindful of the yeast that's growing inside of us. He'll spread something new and miraculous and beautiful in our lives. I pray today is that God will give us discernment to help us see what's shaping us, to cleanse what doesn't belong, and to grow faith inside of us. I'll see you tomorrow.